Olympic Community of Health is a nonprofit in the Olympic region, which includes Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties and 7 tribal nations. We prioritize collaboration across the region, tackling health issues no single sector or tribe can tackle alone. This video series brings bite-sized conversations addressing local health challenges directly to your screen. We invite you to grab a cup of coffee or tea and join us as we dive into today's topic. Our experiences in life, the events and environments that help make us who we are, inform the way we respond to daily interactions. Trauma, defined as a psychological or emotional response to an experience that is deeply distressing or disturbing, impacts the way someone thinks, acts, and responds. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with you?" trauma-informed care is a shift in thinking towards the question, "What happened to you?" We can support one another by acknowledging the presence of trauma and making simple adjustments in systems, protocols, and interactions that prevent further harm. Trauma-informed care allows us to better understand behaviors and needs without blame or judgment. Stronger communication and connections are fostered through this compassionate approach. Ultimately, it creates dignified pathways to health and healing as it helps people get the care and services they need and deserve without triggering or re-traumatizing someone. This topic is essential to fostering a region of healthy people, thriving communities. It is an approach that can be implemented in all fields of work, whether you are a teacher, healthcare professional, customer service support, firefighter, or anything in between. There are opportunities for you to weave trauma-informed strategies into your work and life. OCH has many amazing partners committed to this important work. 2 partners who have set strong examples for what it means to practice a trauma-informed approach are First Step Family Support Center and Quileute Valley School District.
I'm Elisia Anderson. I'm the Executive Director at First Step Family Support Center, and I am drinking iced tea.
And I am Sandra Velasquez, and I'm a migrant home visitor and family service advocate, and I'm drinking a double mocha tall. So in order to be trauma-informed, what shifts are made?
The biggest shift that's made to be trauma-informed is really reframing your thought from why are you doing something to what happened to you. And realizing that all behavior is communication, and that there's often trauma or triggers that are behind behaviors rather than someone choosing to behave that way.
I see that. Yeah.
For an organization to be truly trauma-informed, it has to come down to all levels. It's not just providing trauma-informed care to the clients or the students or the kiddos or families that you're serving, but also thinking about how we interact with each other, how we interact with our teams, that it's a systems approach to looking at the way of the world and knowing that trauma is all around us and that everyone you're interacting with probably has their own traumas and their own triggers. Okay. And avoiding re-traumatizing folks in just the way that we walk through the world with them helps us to all show up our best.
I always like to think of a boulder being tossed into a lake and it ripples out. Everyone gets affected in one way or another. And if more and more people are trauma-informed, then they can provide care that is sensitive, that meets them where they need to be met, and provides equity as well.
Mm-hmm. I love the equity piece about being trauma-informed, really understanding that where someone, the zip code they were born into, or the skin or the gender that we come in comes with its own pieces to that. And so bringing an equity lens into being trauma-informed is part of it, making sure that we are bringing voice and choice and sharing opinions and transparency in decision making. Mm-hmm. All of that helps to really lift people from an equity lens, but also really supports people that have dealt with trauma in their lives. Trauma so often happens when someone doesn't have choice. Most people would never choose to have a traumatic experience, and so often those experiences eliminated all choice.
Yeah.
And so every opportunity that we have to bring consent, bring choice, celebrate opinions, celebrate decision making is trauma informed.
Yeah. I also think safety. Safety, not as in you're not tripping, but safety as in a safe place and space for people to exercise that voice that they have.
Yeah.
It builds trustworthiness and transparency to be able to share that voice.
Being physically safe, emotionally safe, being safe enough to be brave and share your thoughts. Yeah. Can you tell me more about how sharing stories is important in working through the trauma experience?
Sharing your story is really important. Being able to have that trustworthiness, the transparency, to have somebody listen to you is part of a protective factor. Being able to go to your neighbor and talk to them, or to an agency, approach an agency. I've had a lot of women in the field that I work in who are immigrants who come to me and they tell me their stories, and they don't want their children to know. They want to protect them from what happened to mom. And so what we're doing in Forks is we're documenting those stories, and we're going to put them into a book, and they're going to be anonymous so that when anybody reads them, they won't know who they are, but they'll get the stories out. They're pretty difficult, traumatic stories. So to be able to work with the families is something really positive that I feel really proud of. I'm really proud of the parents.
In looking from a trauma-informed approach or trauma-informed care, then also looking at the other pieces to that of bringing in hope or bringing in protective factors, that we know that these traumas happen, we know these adverse childhood experiences happen, but we also know that there's things that we can layer into people's lives that are protective and that can counteract these traumas. ACEs are adverse childhood experiences, and that work is based out of a study that came out in the 1980s. Children that experienced these things, such as divorce of a parent, physical abuse, sexual abuse, incarceration of a parent, food insecurity, those things, that the higher number of those things that a child experienced during their childhood had significant relationship to their long-term health outcomes with mental health and physical health. And so starting to figure out that this was an issue, the work continued on, and like we were just talking about, brought in positive childhood experiences that combat that, protective factors, and how do we negate this negative impact on kiddos' lives for their whole future.
Right. I also see resiliency. So many families have become very resilient in the face of the challenges that they struggle through. And yes, they have high ACEs score, they have this trauma in their life, but they bounce back. And that's one of the things that happened to me. I was a victim of domestic violence. My ACEs score is high. And after I realized that I could say no, that I could get out, it was liberating. And then I not only survived, but then I thrived. There were wraparound services for me. And realizing that there were wraparound services helped me see that I wasn't alone. And I was sharing earlier that I felt like a bird stuck in a cage, and all I could see were the wires around me. And everyone else was like, there's space in between, the door's open, you can be free. And I couldn't see the forest for the trees, right? So I when I got free, when I was out, then I could help other people around me in having recognized that trauma. And so that was liberating.
You brought up the strengths, and I love seeing a strengths-based approach, is realizing that even with all all of the things, complicating factors in lives or traumas that people are facing, recognizing that people also come with tons of strengths. And celebrating those and building on those. It's just so beautiful to see what people make of their lives.
Yeah.
How have you seen this trauma mindset in action in your work life?
So I work with kindergartners, and they're beautiful, and we asked them to line up, and this little boy was overreacting, and the teacher went and extended her hand to him. I'm going to have to take your hand. And he began to really express trauma. And I was at the back of the line thinking, oh no, he's traumatized, he's triggered. And because we found out later that he was pulled by his mom that he was taken away from. So having an option to go to the front or to the back of the line may have been better choices at the time. And so being trauma-informed, she wasn't. I had the training, and seeing it in action made me think everybody needs it. All the teachers need it. All the principals need it. All the paraeducators need it. The bus drivers. We all need to spread this word so that we're not re-traumatizing children. This is a 5-year-old who didn't need to be re-traumatized.
We see often, or somewhat regularly, where we're working with someone and they are struggling to reach their goals, and what might seem like a simple goal to us of make this phone call, connect with this resource, that it's like climbing a mountain. I've talked to staff over and over where we're maybe trying to troubleshoot why this is such a huge issue, and we go back to we don't know all the traumas that happened, and sometimes trauma kicks in this kind of executive dysfunction where it's really hard to make the next decision or take that next step or put that thing that you should do into action, whether that's putting the load of laundry in or doing the dishes or making a phone call to get signed up with WIC or whatever it might be. That sometimes those things that might seem simple, when you're working with somebody who's worked through a lot of trauma, those are huge mountains to try and climb.
Well, I know that that's what helped me. Just having somebody sit there non-judgmentally and guide me. There was a time when my boss would call me and say, Sandra, you need to come in. You're supposed to come in. What do you need to do first? And it came from, I need to put my feet on the floor. I need to stand up. Baby steps. And she was willing to work with me because she saw something in me that I couldn't. And then I would make it to work. And that was trauma-informed care.
I love that idea of trauma-informed workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it does. It takes every piece of a system from the top down to really impact clients and people that we're there to help.
Yeah. What I feel more passionate about is being involved in how do you get started in this work? How do I begin with understanding what trauma is, what trauma-informed means, what triggers are, and then how to access that training. And I think it's just having the curiosity to want to build a better world.
There is room for everyone on the journey to become a trauma-informed Olympic region. Here are some ways that you can join Elisia and Sandra in learning more and implementing a trauma-informed approach. Kitsap Strong provided a 2-session near sciences training for Olympic Community of Health. Together, we shared ideas and strategies for supporting all individuals to discover the skills and opportunities they need to flourish. This training provides resources to strengthen your trauma-informed approach, including learning about how different biological systems interact with each other and the environment, data on the prevalence of adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, and tips to help regulate your mind and body in moments of being overwhelmed, such as breathing, music, movement, and more. Check out these free recorded sessions at olympic.ch.org. Also check out OCH's blog to learn about all kinds of creative approaches to trauma-informed care. Olympic Area Agency on Aging is training their entire staff to better care for the senior communities in the Olympic region. And Kitsap Recovery Center expanded experiential therapy options to include trauma-informed yoga and 12-step yoga. Not sure where to start? Just go to olympicch.org to connect with resources or a friendly staff member who can share more about this important topic.